United Nations added Israel to the list of countries and organizations that harm children in conflict zones. The European Union holds parliamentary elections from June 6th to the 9th this year. And in Russia, the third day of the International Economic Forum in St. Petersburg is taking place as President Vladimir Putin participates in the analysis of world events and their impact. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos, and from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba, we begin with the news. In Argentina, the government of Javier Milei announced the elimination of the Undersecretariat of Protection Against Gender Violence as part of its cuts on state departments. The executive ordered the measure on Thursday, alleging an overlapping of functions for the same task. It was the last remaining agency of the former Ministry of Women, Gender and Diversities, which Milei closed after assuming the presidency on December 10th last year. The office employed about 800 people who accompanied and protected the victims of gender violence, as well as developed actions for reparations and access to justice. In this context, the Association of State Workers held a symbolic embrace at the doors of the former Ministry of Women to repudiate the decision. They emphasized that this fact represents a huge setback not only for the feminist and diversity movement, but also for the institutionality of gender in our country, living it for the first time since 1992, without an agency responsible for the implementation of public policies that promote a life free of violence, without discrimination, and in pursuit of equality. We stay in Argentina as the communities of the province of Jujuy mobilized on Thursday to defend the water in their territories under the slogan, "Without water, there is no life." The mobilization was organized by several communities in the province who denounced that the government's water management plan violates the Convention 169 of the International Labour Organization, the Escazú Agreement, and the National Constitution by not respecting free, prior, and informed consultation with the affected communities. The citizens' main demand is the cancellation of the agreement signed by the Mecorot Water Company and the implementation of policies that guarantee sustainable and equitable water management, respecting the rights of the native and rural communities.
I am at the Ministry of Production here outside. It was known that inside, behind the backs of the members of the communities and the Virginia people, there is a new meeting of water table with the name of CFI, which is the one signing the agreement with the government of Jujuy and the Israeli company Mekorot. And well, this is a new very important demonstration, even a year after the struggle against the reform of the defense of water, showing that they are going to fight to prevent this agreement from advancing, which is cruelly in favor of the interest of the imperialist multinational that come to plunder the lithium, the agribusiness entrepreneurs like the DESMA or tobacco, who are asking for more guarantees. This is why they are also advancing with the law of bases, which is the regime against the common goods that they are defending. So, it is very important for us to support the left front as FTS legislators and to continue this struggle to get rid of Macorods, but also to get rid of the law of bases, the law of emergencies, and the regime.
In other news, the people of Venezuela mobilized in support of the Bolivarian Revolution and in rejection of the unilateral coercive measures imposed by the government of the United States. The rallies were led by the first vice president of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, Diosdado Cabello, who highlighted the importance of what is called the 1/10 system of good governance implemented by President Nicolás Maduro in the year 2022. Cabello also reiterated that the victory of the party must be built from the grassroots. The demonstrations were held in the 14 municipalities of the Carabobo state, where its residents expressed their support for President Maduro ahead of the upcoming elections on July 28th.
And something fundamental in this struggle is that we can't be overconfident. Nobody should take victory for granted. Victory must be built with solid bases. Because what will the right do on July the 28th after being told that Nicolás Maduro won the presidency? Will they claim fraud? Will they say the same old story? Will they play the same old movie? So we have to organize ourselves to defend our work on July the 28th.
In Panama, the Single National Union of Construction and Similar Industries Workers, SUNTRAX, mobilized to demand that the government to open bank accounts arbitrarily closed. SUNTRAX leader Saúl Méndez stated that the union is also mobilizing against the outgoing president Laurentino Cortizo, who continues to politically persecute the union after it led the protest against metallic mining and the derogation of the contract with Panama Mining Company last year. Méndez also added that other union organizations, such as the National Union of Workers of the University of Panama, are also joining the protest. In this context, the mobilization began at 4 p.m. local time from the Belisario Porras Park in the Panamanian capital and reached the headquarters of the executive branch. Now let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. United Nations added Israel to the list of countries and organizations that harm children in conflict zones. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres notified the spokesman for the Israel Defense Forces in the United States, Hidan Silberman, of the organization's final decision. The list will be published next week when the report will be distributed to the members of the Security Council. The document records the killing by the Israeli army of thousands of Palestinian children, the shelling of civilian facilities, as well as the prevention of the delivery of humanitarian aid. Israeli Channel 13 confirmed on Thursday night that despite Israel's attempts to dissuade him, the UN Secretary General has decided to proceed with this inclusion. In this context, in Palestine, at least 15 people were killed in a new Israeli attack targeting central Gaza Strip. Israel shelled the al-Nusayrat, al-Maghazi, and al-Budaysh refugee camps and parts of the city of Deir al-Balah at dawn on Friday. The official Palestinian news agency Wafa reported that 6 members of the same family were killed after an attack on their home in the al-Maghazi camp. 2 people were also reported killed in al-Nusayrat and several others in different locations in the center of the enclave, all of them transferred to the collapsed Martyrs of the Al-Aqsa Hospital. In this context, 8 new massacres were reported in Palestine during the last 24 hours on the 245th day of the Israeli genocide against the Gaza Strip. Health authorities confirmed the killing of at least 77 Palestinian civilians and more than 220 wounded in the midst of the recent Tel Aviv attacks on Palestinian territories. The operations also impede the care of victims in addition to the recovery of the corpses under the rubble or on the roads. According to the official data, the figure exceeds the 36,731, while the wounded civilians surpassed the 83,000. And meanwhile, on Thursday afternoon, hundreds bid farewell to 3 young Palestinians that were murdered by Israel in the town of Jenin and its refugee camp in the occupied West Bank. The funeral march started in front of the government hospital as relatives and friends bid farewell to the 17, 21, and 24 years old while chanting slogans against the Israeli occupation. The youngsters were killed during an assault by Zionist forces during a raid in which 6 other people were wounded by soldier gunfire. Meanwhile, in a parallel raid, another Palestinian died after receiving a gunshot wound. Since last October 7th, 528 Palestinians were killed by Israel in the occupied West Bank. And we now move on to other topics. The European Union holds parliamentary elections from June 6th to 9th of this year. More than 400 million European citizens in the 27 member countries of the Union will elect the 720 seats in Parliament. The citizens will have to elect the legislature, and once elected, the MEPs have the responsibility to appoint the new president of the European Commission. In this context, residents are looking for European policy to address the situation regarding the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, as well as the financing of the Israeli government, among other topics. And now we welcome from our special envoy Yunus Soner from Berlin, bringing us more information on the European Parliament elections. Welcome, Yunus. What's the latest over there?
Hello, good afternoon from here from Berlin. I'm standing right here in the front of the German parliament. Behind me, the Reichstag, the old building, but that is obviously not to debate right now. What is going to be voted for is the European Parliament, and the voting has started in some countries, among them Ireland and Netherlands, on the 6th of June, and will continue until the 9th of June, the day where the majority of the countries, the populations, will vote for the Parliament, among them as well Germany, where 96 members of the European Parliament will be elected by more than 60 million citizens of the German Republic, Federal Republic, in addition to 4 million non-German EU citizens living here in Germany. So 35 political parties are presenting themselves here in Germany to these elections, and they have 1,413 candidates running for a seat in the parliament. The campaign here is not very heated until now, but it is becoming more and more. 3 different topics are standing out, as far as I can judge, here in Germany, between the established fractions in the European Parliament, the ones of the Conservatives, the leading fraction, the Social Democrats, and the Greens, as well as the Liberals on the one side, and the Eurosceptics or even the Euro enemies on the other side, which are comprised by the extreme right-wing parties, but also some new independent or even left-wing forces. The topics in debate are, first of all, here in Germany, the climate change and the according energy transition, which puts a pressure on the traditional motors, on the traditional automobile sector here in Germany, and also on the peasants who have been applying, for instance, diesel fuel, and the cuts, the subsidies for this diesel fuel were cut as part of this Green Deal, of this energy transition, which caused the peasants to stage huge protests here around Berlin in the recent months. One topic is the climate change. The second topic is migration, where the Eurosceptics or the extreme right-wing parties are demanding a complete closure of the continent against immigrants, and also to expel those who are already within the European Union. In that context, it's worth mentioning that the German parliament, not the European one, but the German parliament is preparing a law by which anyone who rejects the right of Israel to exist can be subjected to a trial and expelled from Germany too. This law is still in preparation, but it kind of shows the atmosphere in the topic of migration. Third topic, as you mentioned, is the war in Ukraine and the positioning of the European Union in the world. Here, the traditional factors, the traditional fractions demand a more active, more interventionist European Union, which even reforms itself institutionally so that certain bigger countries like Germany and France can take the lead easier and push the Union into a more interventionist practices in the foreign policy. Others, the opposing fractions, reject that and defend the European countries' sovereignty and the law and the regulation that all foreign policy decisions have to be taken anonymously. So this is another debate, and of course it has become in the recent days a debate on peace and war in Europe, because the oppositional fractions say that the current government and the Commission are pushing Europe into a wider conflict, into a wider military conflict. And in fact, the German defense minister said that Germany had to be prepared for a war, and the cabinet has prepared an 81-page long paper, which has been approved by the cabinet, that studies the case of complete self-defense, as it's labeled, which means that Germany as an entire country enters the war. So the climate is also a little bit about war and peace, and this, so it seems, pushes more people to go to the ballots, to go to the ballot boxes and to vote. And this debate about war and peace, I'm told here by observers, is more serving those oppositional factors who demand a diplomatic solution in the Ukraine crisis. I'm being told here in Berlin that the mood is quite changing, that the public opinion is becoming afraid of the widening of the war in Ukraine, including European countries as well. And that might also affect the numbers coming out on the 9th of June on Sunday evening.
We'll continue to follow the topic closely. Thank you, Yunus, for your input. And that was Yunus Soner, teleSUR Special Envoy in Berlin on the European parliamentary elections. And now we have a final short break coming up. But before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and also share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In Russia, the third day of the International Economic Forum in St. Petersburg is taking place, where President Vladimir Putin participated in the analysis of the world events and their impact. The Russian president highlighted the state of trade relations in the world, as well as the development of technological information and transformations. Putin highlighted the constant changes in the financial, transport, and military sectors. Additionally, he also emphasized Russia's trade potential despite the obstacles and sanctions that have been legally imposed on its country. Now we move on to other topics. On Thursday, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva visited for the fourth time the areas affected by the floods in the state of Rio Grande do Sul that have caused 172 deaths. In this sense, the Brazilian leader announced that the government will pay a minimum wage of about $271 for a period of 2 months to about 434,000 employees of companies unable to recover their operations. Likewise, Lula also added that his administration will provide a package of economic aid aimed at resolving the emergency and will provide financial assistance. On the other hand, Lula assured his government would work hard on a plan to rebuild housing and infrastructure in safer areas to avoid future events like this.
The federal government won't fail the people of Rio Grande do Sul. In fact, I have already seen it 4 times, and I will say for the 5th time that we will not lack mayors and partners for the people of Rio Grande do Sul.
In this context, the Brazilian president further guaranteed that all affected settlers will recover their homes soon.
The federal government will take measures to ensure that all those who lost their homes get them back, so that they can live in dignity here in Rio Grande do Sul.
And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and also on TikTok. For TeleSUR English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.